Yo, 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 yo. What's up, what's up, what's up? Give up the rock. Hello, my fellow revolutionaries, and happy Friday to you. Depending, obviously, where you're coming from. But here in the wonderful land of Oz, it is Friday. And might I start with yo, 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 what's up, what's up, what's up? Give up the rock. Hello, Honey32, and welcome to today's special Friday stream. I say special, it does happen every week, but it's a special day of the week, might I add, because Friday is the one of the most special days on the working person's calendar. It is the eve of the weekend, a sacred time in the work week where capital cannot touch us. So I would just like to say from that I would like to pay my respects to workers past, present, and emerging, and acknowledge all of you out there. So can I just say, for test purposes, you should be able to get closed captions on this, Honey32. So I have actually put the latency down. So like I can actually see the difference. Like it's really far behind from what I'm saying. But whatever. You should be able to see closed captions. So hopefully that feature is enabled. Like if you just go down the bottom on your YouTube screen along the bottom of the video, you should see the CC symbol, and you should be able to click closed captions for that. So hopefully that works. I hope so. Yeah, you're unemployed. Well, look, you don't actually have to be employed to be a member of the working class. So the captions, oh, I can't see. That don't tell me that, because I really changed all the latency settings to make sure that closed captions could be enabled. So it's only in English, but you should be able to activate that button. So if you can activate that button, that's a good thing. Let me know. I hope it's working. And like even for other people that are native English speakers but might be American or something like that, and so you took the mask off, you're no longer a mystery. Well, look, it is a mystery movement. But like, no, my biometric data, let's say, NP Life Apologist, my biometric data is no longer a mystery. And like, the tech bros and our feudal overlords, techno feudal overlords have access to me in my complete form. This is my true form. And so this is just, I guess, the way that it works. And like, we'll see if that helps kind of grow this movement a little bit, because we have been suffering lately, might I add. I'm not sure if it's just from all the successive bouts of kind of being censored on these streams or not, but like I think I've taken a bit of a hit in the YouTube algorithm recently. So it's good to have new people on here. He was so mysteriously. I was. Now I'm only semi-mysterious. But yeah, it's good to have you on here, NP Life Apologist. I'm not sure if this is your first stream, but please let us know if it is. And if it is your first stream, I'm glad that you could make it. So today, if you are wondering what's going on, actually, I have to take back the initial announcement that I did, because in Australia it's actually a public holiday. So it's not just the eve of the weekend; it's actually a public holiday. Something that working people would have fought hard to get in a country like this, in order to have a break from capital. So happy public holiday to all the Australians out there. It is Good Friday, and so with Australia's strong Catholic roots, we've been able to wrestle a day from capital to enjoy as a working class, as a working class. And for all those people that do have to still work on a public holiday, you should get some really good penalty rates and get paid a lot more than you usually do. So I completely lost the day where he revealed his face. I did put a video onto YouTube, but I did on Patreon. It was actually a big Patreon drive to get people to go and sign up onto Patreon so they can get notifications. So I can get notifications to everyone on Patreon because it's not guided by an algorithm. Whereas like YouTube, you know, if I put a piece of content out, I have no idea if you get the notifications or not. It's really up to the algorithm to decide. Oh, I thought the holiday was 420. Ooh. No. That is, I wonder if that is actually a holiday, like by coincidence here. So for Saturday is, yeah, okay. So 420 will actually be a public holiday because it's going to be on, it's going to be Easter Sunday this year. So we will get a bit of, 420 action going on in Australia, which is nice. Every 420 is a holiday. There we go. Yeah, exactly at 4:20 p.m. every single day is a nice little holiday, depending what type of lifestyle you lead, and whether you're a student or not, I guess. That's always a good indication. So yes, hello, Jag, welcome. Hello, Ollie Atlas here for the roll call as always. Thank you for letting yourself be known. So today, if you are wondering what we are doing, that's what I'll be celebrating. Jag has risen. Yes, okay. I'm sure that's what you'll be celebrating. And I hope you have a great celebration. What, every 420 is a holiday? 420 is a reference to weed smoking culture. Honey 32. I'm pretty sure its derivation is from America. As I had it explained to me by Americans, it's when you finish college for the day or work, but I think it's more for students. By the time you get home and get your stuff ready, get your gear ready, it's like 420, and that's the perfect time to smoke. That's when it all goes down. So 420 is like this thing. It's a reference to smoking weed or marijuana, however you want to say it. But it's a big thing in smoking culture. So yeah, and Easter, which is a public holiday, falls on 420. So more reason to celebrate than most. Why not? There are so many stories about the origin. No one really knows. There you go. Well, I guess the urban legend will continue, and I will spout the urban legends that I am used to, or I've been told directly. But yes, I'm pretty sure it's American though. It's an American kind of cultural thing. But it's really quite popular, just in case you were wondering. So, outside of this little cultural tangent that we've been on, we're going to have a look today we're going to look as much as we can into the hearing, a Senate hearing, where they're talking, the US Senate, that is, where they're talking to a whistleblower who worked for Meta, so Facebook. So it would have been before, I think, Meta came out as the new parent company, but was an employee of Facebook. Her name is Sarah Wynn-Williams, and I'm pretty sure she's a Kiwi, so she's a New Zealander. Because when I was hearing her speak, I was like, what is that accent? It's very subtle, but it's definitely not American. I thought she was Aussie, but I think she's actually a Kiwi. What's a whistleblower? Okay, a whistleblower is someone who works, inside an organization, whether it be public or private, or it doesn't, I guess, have to be an organization. Maybe they work for someone, and they give out information about wrongdoings, things that people have been up to no good from inside an organization, and they blow the whistle basically on and alert authorities or alert the general public as to something that's happening, that is, illegal or corrupt or just like morally wrong, maybe. And so like it's a broad ranging term, but in this context, it's for someone who's like, from within the Facebook organization. She's released documents and she's come out with testimony. So she's spreading, I guess, her version of the truth about like what has happened in Facebook and things that she's not happy about. And she feels, I think, morally obliged to say, because like, I don't even think, as a New Zealander, if she is an American citizen or not, but like, maybe she is now, maybe she's been naturalized. And luckily, unlike with Boeing, that girl wasn't eliminated. Yeah, and like, whistleblowers cop a lot of hate and sometimes they disappear, as Ollie Atlas is alluding to. And like, sometimes they just get absolutely destroyed by the system. So like in Australia, we've had whistleblowers come out against like, people doing the wrong thing in our tax service. And so we call it the taxation office. And, there's heavy laws criminalizing whistleblowing for government agencies, especially the tax office. Like, you can't spread stuff about the tax. It's all private information. That's how they, I guess, justify it. So you can't, release information from the tax office. And so like when the tax office does something wrong and somebody releases it, they're a whistleblower, they get, life in, no, not life, but they get like, 20 years in prison or something like that. But like, they expose something wrong, but like our system doesn't really support them. Now, in this case, this woman, like she's come out and like, the armies of lawyers that Mark Zuckerberg has at his command, or Meta has at its command, have threatened her ridiculously. I got censored saying their CEO is in fact a lizard. No way. Really? No way. That's funny. Is this going to be one of those topics? Oh my God. I feel like I'm already being suppressed by this algorithm on YouTube, but like, whatever. Just like, everyone, just as a word of warning, like we have been censored a number of times on YouTube, and like it's because of, or one of the reasons anyway, is because like if people get like if they get hit multiple times for being censored in the comments, then YouTube must have a threshold and it just cuts off the stream. So I'm hoping that's not going to happen today. But you've all been warned. Please don't abort the stream by, if you're trying to get a comment across and it doesn't work the first time, maybe just leave the comment or say it in Discord and then I'll repeat it out loud, because apparently that doesn't really make a difference for some reason. So anyway, yes, so this lady, like I'll show you what she looks like just to, dispel the mystery that's going on here. This lady, Sarah Wynn-Williams, she's come out and like she's written a book, actually. She's written a book called Careless People. And like that's what's kickstarted all of this. She's released a book about like, what really goes on inside Meta. And like, like I've said, this is really part of our investigation into what the tech bros are up to. And like, I've been trying to make the case now for, weeks that like they have incredible power. They have incredible control over your privacy. They use that incredible control over your data and your privacy to not only, profile you and sell you on to like third parties to, for big money, but like they also use your data and your privacy against you to modify your behavior and get you to do things that like, you might not have thought to do yourself unless someone implanted that idea into your subconscious through social media. And like, this is incredibly powerful because like, you can start to socially engineer people. You can start to change the way that society operates by controlling people's behaviors as a consumer class. I don't think we've ever been in a society before where consumption and the consumers, because consuming is part of production, right? Every society produces something. Marx, as a historical materialist, analyzes history and says and looks at things as historical materialism. And the basis of historical materialism is like, each epoch in society has been defined by its mode of production, like how people reproduce themselves as a society. And they do that through, like, a group of people do all the stuff, they create all of the value that everybody kind of lives off. And like there's usually a group of people kind of that control that group of people that create all the value. So the people that create all the value that everyone survives off, like the food, let's say, as a really basic one, they're the working class. And then you have like a group of people, a ruling class, who kind of, set up society in their image, all the ideology, all the thinking, all the science, all the religion, all the understanding, everything is kind of structured in a way that makes sure the working people keep working, or is a working class and there is a ruling class that keeps kind of managing society for everyone's interests, for their own interests, whatever. But like, in this world, which, Shoshana Zuboff will call surveillance capitalism, in this type of world that Yanis Varoufakis will call techno-feudalism. So we're well beyond capitalism here. In this world, the production doesn't seem to be the important thing exactly. It's not exactly who controls the working class, who produces the value. It's like, how do you control the consumer class? And like the consumer class is everyone. Like, everyone has to consume something. Everyone has to, eat food, live somewhere, wear clothes, exist and exchange with one another. And now we do that through telecommunications and very, very complicated telecommunications software and technologies. And so, like, they control the consumer class with such, like, intricacy that, like, that kind of influences like how things are produced. So instead of really controlling just the working class, like these people, these tech bros, control almost everyone, consumers, workers, everyone in society, because everyone's technically a consumer. They're collecting stuff on everyone. And like, I've heard this woman say already, this Sarah Wynn-Williams, that, like, she had, like, chats to other Facebook executives about, like, oh, what do you think of this thing that Facebook has done? It's pretty scary for our kids and stuff like that. And they just look at her and laugh, kind of thing, and say, ha ha ha, we wouldn't let our kids on Facebook. That's outrageous. Like, we know exactly what they're up to. There's no way we'd let our children be exposed to that. And so, like, the amount of control that they have over people that are using this technology and like the stuff that they're up to with it is beyond our comprehension. I don't think people really understand all of this. And it's not, Honey 32, it's not until you have a whistleblower that, like, you can actually get this understanding and figure out what the hell is going on, what they're up to. Stephen, welcome. And little bunny there. So I think that's a nod to Easter and the public holiday. And yes, I was asked the other day, they're just like, are you actually going to work on a public holiday? And I'm like, hell yeah, let's do a public holiday stream. So here we are. It is Good Friday, the public holiday in Australia, the wonderful land of Oz. And yeah, we're going to do a little bit of a viewing of this hearing, because like I've been saying, I think this really relates to the investigation we've been doing into techno-feudalism and surveillance capitalism, and just will showcase some of the stuff these tech bros are up to, which is, like I said, beyond what we can comprehend. It really is some scary, scary stuff. And like, it's different to Palantir's scary stuff, like the people that use AI to control like the military and like, plan, death squads and stuff like that. So like, it's more than stuff that goes vroom vroom and pew pew and beep beep. This is like stuff that basically controls everyday people all of the time in the billions across the face of the earth. Like, this really is like, Facebook's reach is like 3 billion people. And what's the global population at the moment? Like 7 billion people. Like, that's an incredible amount of people that they've got coverage on. And like, you might be one of those people just like, yeah, I've got Facebook's app on my phone, but I never use it. But like, it doesn't matter. Like, if you use it or not, if you've ever installed it, you got access to it or something like that, they are tracking you. And like, they don't just track you if you have the app either. Like, a lot of like apps that you download that are, you know, used for other purposes and stuff like that, like when you look at like the list of the third parties who get access to your information through particular apps, Facebook is like one of the ones that is first in line to get access to that data. So like, even if you don't have Facebook, like other apps that you're using who's, you know, pass on your information to third parties, Facebook is one of those third parties. So like, you know, they'll recreate you in digital form whether you use them or not, which is incredible to think about. One sociology class I had about a year or two ago taught me that Wizard of Oz symbolized workers' struggles. The story of, yeah, I've heard many different interpretations of the Wizard of Oz, actually. There, one of them is like the fight between people in like the 19th century who were trying to figure out what type of currency America should have, like if it should be kind of a gold-backed currency, hence like the yellow brick road, and then like the city of Oz is like really green and supposed to represent the people that were greenbacks supporters and stuff like that, so like paper money currency people. So oh, did it? It's glitched. Hopefully it's back. But like, yeah, there's some very interesting interpretations of Wizard of Oz. But yeah, can I ask what a third party is? A third party is, so like, you know, if you've got two people, so like, let's say you consent to use Facebook. Facebook gives you terms and conditions and you agree to them. It's an agreement between you two as two parties. And then you could have a third party who might have an interest in your relationship. So like, I choose to use Facebook and I do it for free, but like the trade-off between us is that they get access to my data. And then the third party is just like someone who comes along to Facebook and says, I'll purchase MysterE's data, please. That'll be nice. And so like, they're technically a third person in that little relationship. So it's gone from just your standard relationship to a love triangle, if that helps. So like parties, sorry, Honey32, in this sense, I'm just talking about two parties that are engaged in an exchange relationship. It's not about politics, sorry. So I should clarify that. Yeah, there's a lot of conflicting language going on there. So yes, in this sense, it's non-political. It's all exchange, baby. It's all capitalist. So yeah, let's have a little listen. And like I've fast forwarded, I've cut out like the senators talking, because they talk for like, 20 minutes or something about that, about kind of their thoughts on Facebook and stuff, which is nice, but like, who cares what they think? I want to hear what she has to say, and I want to hear like her testimony in terms of what Facebook has been up to. So, yeah, let's have a crack and just, like usual, comment away, and like, if you have any insights or questions or anything like that, we'll speak about it as we go. But like, this is going to take a while. This is like an hour and 20 minutes. So I'm not sure if we'll get through the whole thing, but like, I think it's going to be eye-opening. So let's do it.
Director of Global Public Policy at Facebook. Now, my name is Sarah for the opportunity.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, swear in.
What if you never had to prospect again? We'll do it for you.
Boo. Go away.
Swear in our witnesses before they testify. So if you would, let me invite you to rise, raise your right hand, and we'll get started. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you very much. We'd love to hear your opening statement. Take as long as you need.
Chairman Hawley, Ranking Member Durbin, and distinguished members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. My name is Sarah Wynn-Williams, and I served as the Director of Global Public Policy at Facebook, now Meta, for nearly 7 years, starting in 2011. Throughout those 7 years, I saw Meta executives repeatedly undermine US national security and betray American values. They did these things in secret to win favor with Beijing and build an $18 billion business in China. We are engaged in a high-stakes AI arms race against China. And during my time at Meta, company executives lied about what they were doing with the Chinese Communist Party to employees, shareholders, Congress, and the American public. I sit before this committee today to set the record straight about these illegal and dangerous activities. Meta's dishonesty started with the betrayal of core American values. Mark Zuckerberg pledged himself a free speech champion. Yet I witnessed Meta work hand in glove with the Chinese Communist Party to construct.
They all love their free speech at the moment, right? Like Elon Musk, free speech champion. While at the same time, you know, when you say the things that he don't like on X, it's like, you're gone, like kind of thing. And like Zuckerberg, you know, come on, free speech champion. Come on, buddy. Hey, how many people have been like, you know, chopped off from like Facebook, or you can't post something that you want to, you can't do something easily on that platform. Like, yeah, Zuckerberg, a free speech champion. If that's what you're WTFing, yes, you heard it here, ladies and gentlemen. Zuckerberg is a free speech champion. Seriously.
And test custom-built censorship tools that silenced and censored their critics. When Beijing demanded that Facebook delete the account of a prominent Chinese dissident living on American soil, they did it, and then lied to Congress when asked about the incident in a Senate hearing. The willingness to censor was not the only...
I don't know, man. That's a big call, because they had some heavy glasses. And when I say heavy, like literally heavy and figuratively heavy. But like, they are pretty sick glasses. Like, that guy looks like, I wonder who he is, like her lawyer or something like that. But like, you know, hectic glasses. YouTube algo censored my comment, which was, say it in Discord. Don't say it again. We're gonna get censored. Please. LOL, the purple glasses. They're serious. That guy is serious. I wonder what he's up to.
Only troubling thing I witnessed. I watched as executives decided to provide the Chinese Communist Party with access to Meta user data, including that of Americans. Meta does not dispute these facts. They can't. I have the documents. As recently as this Monday, they claim that they do not operate their services in China. Another lie. In fact, they began offering products and services in China as early as 2014. That hasn't stopped. Their own SEC filings from last year show that China is now Meta's second biggest market. Meanwhile,
did you guys know this? Like, for the Americans that are in the room here, did you know that Facebook was operating in China? Because, like, from what I understood was that they weren't allowed to operate in China. And, like, they have denied operating in China, like, multiple times. Censored again. Okay, third try. Please don't try. Don't try. Don't do it. Don't do it. Because, like, we have been censored. Like, when people do repeatedly try to put the same thing in the chat that keeps getting censored. Please don't. Keep trying. Are you on Discord? Because if you really want, I can do it. I can find out for you. I'll give you the invite for the Discord if you're not there. That's how other people do it. Please. We'll get kicked off. I don't want to start this stream again. Yeah. Here's the Discord if you're not over there. And like, just tell me and I'll read it out. Jag knows. You have, Ollie Atlas, you have free speech till you say something I don't like. And that's not hypocritical. Every social media guy, yeah, pretty much. Every tech guy, pretty much. This is the Silicon Valley ethos. Anyway, let us continue. I had no idea. So like, you Americans have got to tell me, because like this has big implications for, you know, apparently national security.
Meta's AI model, Llama, has contributed significantly to Chinese advances in AI technologies like DeepSeek.
What?
Facebook's secret mission to get into China was called Project Aldrin and was restricted to need-to-know staff. There was no bridge too far. Meta built a physical pipeline connecting the United States and China. Meta executives ignored warnings that this would provide backdoor access to the Chinese Communist Party, allowing them to intercept the personal data and private messages of American citizens. The only reason China does not currently have access to US user data through this pipeline is because Congress stepped in. Meta started briefing the Chinese Communist Party as early as 2015. These briefings focused on critical emerging technologies, including artificial intelligence. The explicit goal being to help China outcompete American companies. There's a straight line you can draw from these.
Are you listening to that? Like, are you actually listening to that? This is absolutely mental. Like, what she's accusing Facebook of doing, or like she's saying like their internal discussion is that Facebook helps China outcompete American companies by providing them artificial intelligence technologies they don't have access to, like I said, in an effort to undermine US companies. This is some next level craziness, like honestly. Sounds familiar with Doge and Russia right now. It's unsurprising the form of capitalism China offers, especially with chats with their government, offers these companies opportunities and they don't have in America. Well, on the news, some guy lost $500K due to Eddie Mac fake advert. How do fake adverts even exist? I'm not sure. I don't understand. I'm not across this reference.
These briefings to the recent revelations that China is developing AI models for military use, relying on Meta's Llama model. Meta's internal documents describe their sales pitch for why China should allow them into the market by, quote, helping China increase global influence and promote the China dream. The truth about what has gone on in China matters. I filed a shareholder resolution asking Meta's board to investigate its activity in China, and I filed whistleblower complaints with the SEC and the DOJ. The measure of how important these truths are is directly proportionate to the ferocity of Meta's efforts to censor and intimidate me. I relied on their commitment given in 2018 that they would waive their rights to pursue forced arbitration. Despite that public commitment, they've brought a case against me for hundreds of millions of dollars. Now, they have a legal gag order that silences me, even as Meta and their proxies spread lies about me. This order is so expansive that it prohibits me from speaking with members of Congress. The gag order was sought by a company whose CEO claims to be a champion of free speech. The American people deserve to know the truth. Meta has been willing to compromise its values, sacrifice the security of its users, and undermine American interests to build its China business. It's been happening for years, covered up by lies, and continues to this day. I am here at considerable personal risk because you have the power and the authority to hold them accountable. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wynn-Williams.
I think what she's ended with is a really good point because we've been talking about this a lot over the last few weeks. The tech bros, there is an onslaught on democracy right now. And like, you know, while you could argue that like, you know, it's not really kind of democracy like in the true sense, like, you know, people getting involved in the political process and having a say, but like the democratic institutions, so like, you know, Congress, and like, you know, boards and, you know, panels like this, special committees and inquiries, what have you, that come out of the democratic process or the democratic machine, let's just say, like they have power over corporations. And so like there is a massive push at the moment to undermine the idea of like, you know, liberal democracy anyway, let's just call it that. And like, it's because there is power. Like, you know, Congress and stuff like that, like these institutions, they have the ability to make decisions that will affect the interest, the private interest of our techno-feudalists, the surveillance capitalists, the tech bros out there. And so like what she's saying is really quite true. Like they can regulate these people, they can break them up, they can deregister their businesses if they really wanted to. And so like, you know, to a certain degree, the business community has to play ball with kind of government. And so, you know, these types of committees are a threat to the tech bros. And so like, you know, if you're wondering, you know, Honey 32, why these people are like, why someone whistleblows, it's because there is someone that can do something about like wrong things that companies are doing. But like, you know, if there wasn't a democratic institution of this nature and you just could buy off sections of the government and stuff like that, which happens in countries all around the world, where they don't have like, you know, democratic oversight, let's say, or like, you know, institutions with credibility and integrity, then like there's nothing standing in the way of these massive corporations doing whatever the hell they feel like with people's information and stuff like that. Josh Hawley is in on the deal. Yeah, I don't know this guy. I don't know this guy at all. But like, you know, I'm not sure if you've got much background you can give for us. But like, you know, he seems to be pretty ardent that Facebook have been lying to them because they've grilled Mark Zuckerberg before, by the sounds of it. That's what they spoke about in their opening, the senators.
So we're going to have 8-minute rounds of questioning, and I will start. Let me just start with something that you referenced, Ms. Wynn-Williams, a moment ago. Facebook Meta issued a statement again last night saying that they don't do business in China.
He's a piece of roadkill. Jeez. And that's coming, you know, fully unfiltered there from Jag. And like, you know, you are quite the, I would say, balanced opinion on a lot of this type of stuff. So obviously this guy is not to be trusted. I don't know anything about this senator. Google lets anyone upload an advert for a price, but it's as if they don't even check the advert first. Ha! Yeah, well, that's business, baby. Hey, you don't have to have morals and ethics when there is money. When you can put a price on something, you can actually, you know, ethics go out the window. So can we make adverts that tell the truth? Adverts that expose Google? I don't know. I'm sure you could. I wonder if they let you run them, though. You'd have to choose where you run them, I'd say. So it's an interesting question.
Now, is that true? Facebook Meta is not doing business in China? Is that accurate?
That is not accurate, Chairman Hawley. Facebook has a $18.3 billion business in China. And to give just one example, in 2014, it launched Oculus in China with a strategy of playing dumb. And Oculus has continued to grow as a significant part of their business.
In fact, they have, since 2014, 2015, they have launched multiple apps in China, often always without seeking authorization from this government, not informing their shareholders, not informing Congress, not informing the public. And now they have employees in China. Is that accurate? They have a partnership with Tencent in China. Is that accurate?
So you got censored. All right. Jag. You badass. He's a chump, toe-sucking punk. I can't believe that got censored. Like, that's pretty, like, light on, don't you reckon? You're not even swearing in it. Toe-sucking punk. That's hard. That's heavy, though. Eh? Like, how do you come back from that? This guy must cry himself to sleep at night, knowing that people think of him like that.
Their Oculus VR business is in China. Is that accurate? So tell me this, why has Facebook Meta been so obsessed, if I can use that word, with breaking into the Chinese market? What is this all about?
It is incredibly valuable for Meta.
Monetarily?
Absolutely.
So we're talking about profit at the end of the day.
We are absolutely talking about profit.
What? Did you hear that? That's outrageous. A company, a corporation of surveillance capitalists that want to break in to the Chinese market, compromise the data of American citizens and undermine American businesses, feed AI technologies to an American adversary, okay, so described, and who uses said AI for their military operations, and they're doing it for profit? Wow. Hey, who would have thought the profit motive, right, goes a long way? Hey, it's even justification for treasonous behavior, apparently. So much do we have to learn about the capitalist mode of production, ladies and gentlemen.
Profit and power. Let's talk about what Meta has been willing to do for profit and power. You said just a moment ago that Meta's dishonesty started with betrayal of core American values, and you mentioned that Mark Zuckerberg has pledged himself as a free speech champion. I notice he talks a lot now in the American media about free speech. I notice he talks a lot when he goes to the White House about free speech and how Facebook won't censor and Facebook will protect the rights of all. Have you ever known Mark Zuckerberg to censor on behalf of China?
Hey, MSP owners, let me ask you something.
Boo.
Let's talk about Zuckerberg and how Facebook won't censor and Facebook will protect the rights of all. Have you ever known Mark Zuckerberg to censor on behalf of China?
Yes, Chairman Hawley.
Let's talk about a few specific instances. In 2017, the Chinese dissident Guo Wingyi suddenly had his Facebook profile shut down. Now, Facebook at first said that this was a temporary glitch. Was that true to your knowledge?
No, Senator Hawley.
In fact, Facebook shut down this dissident's page. This dissident, as you pointed out a moment ago, was living on American soil at the time. Facebook shut down that page based on pressure from the Chinese Communist Party. Is that accurate?
That's accurate.
Let's just take a look here at the documents. Here's some meeting notes taken shortly after a conversation with a Mr. Chow, who's a Communist Chinese Party member, a government official. Here, Mr. Chow asks Facebook, it says to Facebook that they want Mr. Guo's Facebook page dealt with. The notes say that Chow wants Facebook in China, but there are others who don't, so we Facebook need to take measures and do more in such situations to demonstrate we can address mutual interests. And then they go on to list, here's what we could do. We could do nothing, we could say we can do something, or we can do even more than expected, but we need to provide a response to the Chinese Communist Party on what we can do. So here we have evidence of high-level contacts between Chinese Communist Party officials and Facebook asking for this dissident's page to be taken down. Facebook acknowledging this pressure, saying we need to do something if we want to get the party's cooperation, the government's cooperation. And what happened next?
Well, Senator Hawley, one thing the Chinese Communist Party and Mark Zuckerberg share is that they want to silence their critics. I can say that from a personal experience. So I think they came to the right man. This led to a series of events where eventually this man on American soil was kicked off the platform.
So in April...
So the Chinese, the Communist Party, which which is pretty insane. Like, as if you ever had a conversation with Americans who are, I don't know, on the right side of the political spectrum and don't really like communists, let's say. They don't like the Chinese too much either. Like, the Chinese, through Meta, are like reaching out to people that are on American soil and saying that guy over there shouldn't be speaking bad about China. You make sure you do something about that person on American soil and stop them from saying that. And Meta's just like, you got it. Like, would you like fries with that? So, like, this is what is happening. An American company is engaging in this type of behavior, basically taking directions from the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, because they want to make sure that, their, I think it was mutual interests was the term that they used in their email correspondence. They want to make sure that their interests align with one another so they can continue to do business, and all for, the low price of $18.3 billion.
April of 2017, following these conversations, Facebook takes down the profile, bans it, of Mr. Guo. Then in September, they make that ban permanent. Now, here's the really interesting thing. When Facebook's general counsel was asked about this directly under oath in a Senate Intelligence Committee hearing, he sang a different tune. Senator Rubio asked him directly, was there any pressure from the Chinese government to block his account? Was there any pressure to block his account? The general counsel, Mr. Stretch, no, Senator. We reviewed a report on that account and analyzed it through regular channels using regular procedures. Was this truthful testimony, Ms. Wynn-Williams?
No, Senator.
It's in fact an outright lie, is it not?
It is, Senator.
We just saw the documentation. Facebook received not just a request, Facebook received direct pressure from the Chinese Communist Party and bowed to it and discussed it internally and planned it and then lied about it to Congress. Let's talk about what else they've been able to do, been willing to do in order to get this access to the Chinese market. Let's look at some more meeting notes. Here's a readout of a group of Facebook engineers offering to create a censorship regime that will allow Facebook to block all traffic the Chinese Communist Party doesn't want. Phase 0, this is an internal chat. Phase 0, we identify all traffic that are currently blocked in China and we, Facebook, block them. This is a test for us to see whether we can actually identify all traffic from China. And then the chat continues, yes, good way to build trust. And another conversant says, great stuff, guys, let's do it. What do they give us some context here, Ms. Wynn-Williams? What are they talking about doing here? When they say block all content that China wants, we, Facebook, do it for them, what are they talking about?
They're talking about activating their censorship tools on behalf of the Chinese Communist Party.
So Facebook creates censorship tools that will allow them to assume the burden, if you like, of censorship, where they will do all of the censoring that the Chinese government was doing. Facebook would do it on their behalf. Is that right?
That's my understanding, sir.
And here you have Facebook employees celebrating it. Good way to build trust. They mean build trust with the Communist Chinese Party, right?
Correct, Senator.
And great stuff, guys. Let's do it. Meaning they greenlit this and went forward to see if they could make it happen. Is that accurate?
That's my understanding, Senator.
All of this, let's be clear, for a murderous regime in China, the most barbaric, most evil regime on the face of the planet.
The most barbaric and evil regime on the face of the planet. Also a country that actually hasn't engaged in actual all-out war in I don't know, it's 50 years or something like that, where, at the same time you have, Captain America sitting over here calling a country that hasn't actually engaged in warfare and threatened anyone else in 50 years or something like that. The most barbaric and evil regime on the face of the planet. Sometimes these people forget that they also like to call, North Korea the most evil and barbaric regime on the face of the planet. And Putin and stuff like that. It's pretty rich. It's pretty rich. But I can say that here safely in Australia. I would implore that the Americans listening don't say what I'm saying, because, anyone who hates America, you'll be taking a holiday in El Salvador. So let me say these things and you guys just kind of nod and agree kind of thing. Capitalism and authoritarianism goes hand in hand. Yeah, no, look in the mirror, bud. I know, it's pretty fucking rich, isn't it? Hey? There's still people who want the military dictator back here. So, they want, kind of the military coup to come back in. Yeah, well, when people are desperate, things aren't going well, people do absolutely crazy things or expect crazy things of powerful people. I'll tell you that much. But this is pretty crazy as well. They're Meta developing censorship technology for China to implement on Chinese citizens so they can get into the market. I'm a socialist because I care about my country. Yeah, it's actually funny, isn't it? Because when you hit people that hate you for being a communist or a socialist or whatever you may be in that realm of political understanding and ideology, people are just you don't like this country, get out kind of thing. It's just well, actually I do care, and I care about people like you, other people. That's why I have this type of political outlook on life. Socialist. Yes, socialist.
And our free speech champion, Mark Zuckerberg, is here with his team of engineers actively working to make Facebook censor on their behalf. Let me ask you this. What about user data, Ms. Wynn-Williams? Facebook has said publicly many times we would never compromise user data. It's a red line in the sand. We'd never do that. Never, never, never. Was Facebook ever willing to share user data with the Chinese Communist Party?
Yes, Senator.
In fact, they had a plan for that, didn't they? Here's some more documents, internal documents. Update, I spoke with the China team yesterday. They flagged a potential complication arising from our negotiations with the Chinese government. I emphasize this is a Facebook document now. These are Facebook executives. In exchange for the ability to do operations in China, Facebook will agree to grant the Chinese government access to Chinese user data. There it is in black and white. Facebook will agree to grant the Chinese government access to Chinese user data, including Hong Kongese user data. And then they talk about they're going to have to get their Hong Kong citizens to re-agree to terms of service so they can slide this right by them. This is extraordinary. Can I just ask you, Ms. Wynn-Williams, was Americans' user data ever compromised? Or they ever planned to compromise American user data in any way? Do you know?
One of the challenges.
I can actually tell when the screen goes grey and all that sort of stuff. So like if stuff is happening, you're gonna have to like just let me know as soon as possible. And like if it's taking a long time for comments to appear and all that sort of stuff, it's actually because of the latency. In order to get the captions on Honey 32, I've had to actually slow down the response rate. So like what I'm saying is really delayed. Like you guys are getting it like seconds after what I'm saying. Like normally it's pretty responsive. So like I might have to figure out a different way to do captions on YouTube, because like this does seem a bit hard to kind of deal with at the moment. Hong Kongese. Yeah, I've never heard people refer to them as Hong Kongese before, but like, why not? But like at the time of this, like them talking about this stuff, like Hong Kong, I think was still like, kind of separated from like being absolutely engulfed by the Chinese political system, and like had their own kind of democratic system or system of governance. Anyway, they were always connected by to China, let's say.
With the servicing a market as big as China was the internet infrastructure that would underpin that. So I mentioned the cable that they joined between the US and China, and that would be very helpful. But in servicing this market, but it would still mean that the service would be slow. So they contemplated using POP servers, and POP servers is a technical data server that brings the data closer to the end user. The challenge with POP servers is that you can't segregate data. It would have American data, it would have Chinese user data, and it would be on Chinese soil.
So I want to just be clear about this. Here in this document, Facebook is talking about making Chinese user data available to the Chinese government because they're going to store that data in China. Is that correct?
Correct.
But when you store that data in China, Americans who exchange messages or other information with Chinese Facebook users, that would mean the Chinese government could get access to the American data as well. Is that correct?
Through the POP servers, potentially, yes.
And Facebook was willing to take that risk.
So can we expect another property boom, and what will
No, you can't.
affordable
Fuck
housing
off.
for more?
There was a lot of
Chinese Facebook users, that would mean the Chinese government could get access to the American data as well. Is that correct?
through the POP servers, potentially, yes.
And Facebook was willing to take that risk.
So like, let's just get this kind of like, let's just get this straight here. To set up, like to have a better experience for the end users in China, because like they have to go, kind of all the way back to America and like, have the transmissions going and there's delay and all that sort of stuff. You set up a POP server. So you set up a server on Chinese soil to be able to service like your Chinese Facebook market. But like in order to do that, then like one is on Chinese soil, and like any Chinese Facebook users who are dealing with American citizens or any citizens of the world outside of China, like their data gets dragged into that server net as well. And so then the Chinese will have access to that data too. That is incredible. And it's like, he's just like, so Facebook are willing to take that risk and set up these POP servers on Chinese soil and then allow the Chinese potentially to get access to the data of American citizens. And like, this is some crazy shit. Like, we've spoken a lot about like the arms race that is going on at the moment between, America and China and all that sort of stuff. And like the AI war and the new Cold War, and like, setting up avenues for like, your Cold War adversary to get access, like, to get access to your country's citizens' data directly is, it's pretty loose, I might say. Pretty loose. Can we appreciate the irony that this weekend, America is going to be celebrating a holiday dedicated to a socialist who spent the week flipping tables and providing free healthcare? A citizen of Hong Kong or Macau is still Chinese, even though they aren't part of China. Stephen said, "Is it AOZ? It's AOC, isn't it? Yeah. No, I think it's definitely Jesus, right? Hey, let's play the game. Who is it? Who is Steven Z talking about? I think it's definitely. I'd love to see AOC start flipping some tables, going down to the local bank and just being like, you shall not trade here. MysterE, what are you politically? That's a really good question. Now, some people will say that this is sitting on the fence, or yeah, I guess sitting on the fence is a good apt description for this. But my political leaning is I'm anti-capitalist and I am a revolutionary. I think that the capitalist system is a problem. I would like to think from my lessons from trying to understand the work of like scientific socialism and communism from like people like Marx and stuff like that, that like, people don't actually know what happens once you basically overthrow an entire mode of production. Like you can't really guess what's going to come next. All you can really do is overthrow it. You can make all the plans that you want, but like once you start putting plans into practice, then like, gets real. And so like, you don't really know what type of society is going to come kind of after the capitalist mode of production. You really have no idea at all. But like what we do know is that we've got enough evidence to say that capitalism is, is a system that is based on exploitation and it is motivated wholly by profit. And so like, that is an incredibly potent force of human nature. And like, it can really do some incredible things. It's very, very productive, but it's also very wasteful. And like, it also makes humans rather expendable, and basically alienates them from not only one another, but from like the planet itself, from nature, from our ecosystems and stuff like that. So like, I do believe that there is a better way of like running society as a mode of production. I believe like socializing production would be the best way to do it. And that would be rather anti-capitalist, because like capitalism is defined by kind of the legal enforcement and, physical enforcement of private interests and private property. Some would call it bourgeois property. And so like, dismantling that capitalist system is, and being an anti-capitalist is my political outlook. And you can do that through a revolution. So I'm a revolutionary. So capitalism is inherently cratiocratic. I'd like to explain that one. I don't think I've come across that one before. But yeah, if that's what you're asking, Heine32, that's what I am. So I try not to, I won't associate with and call myself communist or anything like that, or socialist, because like, I think that the people that do call themselves communists and socialists today, like for the most part, not all of them, but like a significant amount of them really have no idea what it means. It's more of like kind of an identity politics thing, like, oh, I'm socialist, like kind of thing. And like, they really don't do any service to the cause. And like, what they really are is just like progressive, and like, they want to fight, Republicans or right-wing people in the streets. They don't actually know why, capitalism is a problem. And like, what to focus on. They don't want to particularly focus on a fight against capital. They want to fight against racism or transphobia or inequality, wealth inequality or income inequality. And like, while those are all, honorable struggles, like, all they do is kind of try to make the current capitalist system better instead of overthrowing capitalism or significantly altering capitalism so it will never be the same ever again. But like, the real struggle is against capital itself and the way that system reproduces itself. So that is my political leaning, if you're wondering. There you go.
Yes.
yes, there was a lot of discussion about this, and ultimately, yes.
I mean, this is extraordinary. This is exactly contrary to what Facebook has represented for years. Here, they're willing to build data centers, store data in China. They are willing explicitly to give the Chinese government access to it. And if that means that American user data is also compromised, they're willing to do that too. All for profits in China. There was virtually nothing they weren't willing to do. Chairman Grassley?
And I'm only sitting over here because of your chart. I take very seriously adversaries having access to critical technology such as artificial intelligence, and I noted in my opening statement you made allegations.
Do you know anything about this person, Americans in the audience? Old mate over here. Looks like a seasoned veteran. Far out.
About Meta's efforts to help China's government in that field. In your
How many millennia coins is Zuck going to have to buy to avoid punishment? He's going to have to invest quite a few, eh? But like he can afford to with an $18.3 billion enterprise with China. Eh? He can buy a few coins. Our duty is to the working class and the economy first. We can't afford to be distracted by social identity politics because all workers are oppressed by the bourgeoisie and must stand together. Yeah, I support the working class. That's my political ideology. Is like, there is a great mass of working people out there, and whether you think they're proletariat or not, they produce surplus value that feeds the machine. Most people are working people because that's how you survive in this exchange society. And we should structure society in their interests. And that would be anti-capitalist because society is now structured in the interest of capitalists. And look at what they can do, like treasonous stuff. And you have to set up committees to try and, figure out and get to the bottom of it. And the whistleblowers themselves get eaten alive by the system. Whereas the capitalist kind of just, he walks away, kind of thing, scot-free. But a working class person, like an average person was treasonous, they'd ship him off to El Salvador and pay the El Salvadorian president to personally, lock them away in a mega prison.
You said that Meta's goal was to help China outcompete American companies. Can you explain why they would want to do this? And is there any documentation on that point?
Thank you, Senator. They saw, I guess, part of the value proposition that they could provide the Chinese Communist Party was their expertise in helping Chinese officials. So they explicitly, and I would be happy to provide you with the documentation, called out, U.S. firms. They said, we can help you, China, not have to rely on firms like Cisco or IBM because we can help you with the technical expertise. So they were offering on, things like how to build more efficient data centers or how to ensure that engineers could better understand technology like photo tagging.
Okay, and then, and by the way, that documentation would be appreciated. What was Meta's ultimate goal when they briefed Chinese government on artificial intelligence technology, and what information and technology did they provide?
So I think it links to this value proposition. Meta has some of the best minds of a generation. They've employed the smartest graduates working on cutting-edge technologies like artificial intelligence. So who better, if you're the Chinese Communist Party, to teach you about these technologies than Meta? In terms of understanding the extent of this, I think this is a really great area for your investigation.
Now that Facebook has changed its name to Meta, is Meta currently providing the Chinese government with access to artificial intelligence technology?
If you're a parent of a high school student, here's a harsh reality about
Meta, is Meta currently providing the Chinese government with access to artificial intelligence technology?
So it's been well reported that Chinese researchers have used the Llama model both for AI weapons and also that Llama is part of what powers DeepSeek.
When we're all speculating on what the hell was going on with DeepSeek, far out. Because there was conspiracy theories that DeepSeek was somehow piggybacking off OpenAI or something like that, off ChatGPT. But it was Meta. It was Facebook gave like Chinese like kind of an understanding or like access to the large language model to build the infrastructure. That's how they, because like Meta Llama, which is Meta's kind of AI model, is open source. And so like, they would have got access to the architecture and like, built their own large language model on top of the open source AI model that is owned by Meta. And then like, that's how they produce this thing. 91, this old bastard. Like, is this the guy? Like, that is this senator kind of thing? Are you saying he's 91? That's pretty crazy. Why did you get an ad about parenting? I know, about like teenagers. Like, is your teenager in high school? You should be worried. Like, I think it's because of this. Like, a lot of like her testimony like really comes down to like, not at this part. This is kind of about Chinese and American national security, but like a lot of it is about like what happens to teenagers on Facebook. And like she tells some pretty crazy stuff. I've seen snippets of other interviews where like other senators are asking about like, what happens to teenage girls on Facebook and stuff like that. So
please describe for the committee how Meta planned to share data from American citizens with the Chinese government. And for example, did Meta have any agreements with the Communist Chinese government to provide them with the data? And if so, do they still have those agreements, as far as you can tell that you've been going from the company?
So part of the challenge, as I mentioned, was building like the internet infrastructure to support their China ambitions. And it was through that internet infrastructure that they would gain access to potentially American citizens' data. I think, again, this is another very good area to investigate and get further information.
yeah, I heard he's like been around for a long time. Like he's been in the Senate for like 50 years or something like that. Yeah. Chuck Grassley was born during the Great Depression. Oh, far out. Hey, he's been around, man.
Directly from the company.
Who at Meta facilitated these conversations, and what officials in the Chinese government did Meta staff meet with?
So there were many meetings between the Chinese Communist Party and Meta. So right from the top, Mark Zuckerberg met with Lu Wei. There were lots of visits back and forth between Beijing and Menlo Park. There were lots of meetings with senior Politburo, senior CCP members, and I'd be happy to provide more documentation on this to the committee.
Okay. Then my last question follows on where Chairman Hawley left off. If there's anything that you can add to this, you don't have to repeat what you told him, but describe to the committee how Meta planned to share data from American citizens with the Chinese government. And for I don't think I'm going to ask that question. I think you covered it well.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman Grassley. Thank you for being here. Thank you for these questions. Ms. Wynn-Williams, can I just go back to something you said a moment ago in response to Senator Grassley, and maybe let's just start at the beginning. So is it your testimony that Facebook executives and employees cultivated relationships with members of the Chinese Communist Party?
Absolutely, Senator.
And this happened over a period of years?
This happened over many years.
And did members of the Facebook executive team or other employees at Facebook, Meta, ever brief members of the Chinese Communist Party?
Yes, Senator, regularly.
Exchange information with them?
Yes, Senator.
What are some of the topics that they covered in these briefings?
I mean, it's incredibly broad. So you had meetings at the top executive level, so Mark and Cheryl, and you had meetings, all the way down to, regular engineers who would be providing briefings on cutting edge technology like facial recognition, which is obviously very helpful to the Chinese Communist Party. Facebook Live, as I mentioned, photo tagging, internet infrastructure, so how to build effective data centers. Facebook has a project called the Open Compute Project, which has 5 Chinese companies as a member of it. So it was at every level on every aspect of the many different technology that Facebook has.
You testified a moment ago that one of the things that part of their value proposition to China was that they would help them, Facebook that is, would help China outcompete other American businesses. Can you just say more about that? I mean, that seems like an extraordinary thing to me. Here you have an American company going to our chief foreign adversary on whom we currently have tariffs of like 10 billion% and saying...
10 billion%. That's pretty funny. He's not happy about the tariffs.
Hey, we'd love to help you. We would love to help you beat all of these other American companies. That's extraordinary. I mean, what can you tell us about that?
I mean, I'd be happy to provide the documentation. I mean, literally, the documents in which they were writing this were called our value proposition to be put before the CCP.
So was information related to artificial intelligence part of these briefings? I know you said that there were some sort of informal discussions, but did Facebook actually brief members of the CCP on artificial intelligence, to your knowledge?
Yes, Senator.
And again, was that a once-off, or was this a regular thing?
Senator, I think this is a great area of investigation for your committee.
So why would, you were at Facebook a long time, why would Facebook want to help China with artificial intelligence? I mean, what's the strategy there, do you think? What do you divine the intent to have been?
I think there are lots of, so I think we've talked about the general focus of the company of wanting to help China. You know, this is over a period of time where China was rapidly trying to increase its own technological expertise and trying to grow its own homegrown technology company. So it's incredibly valuable to have the brightest minds in the world show you how that technology works, if that was, and then I think there's...
Yeah, I can't help but think, like, Zuckerberg, like, is a bit of a chump here. Like, okay, he's been wanting to break into the Chinese market for a long time, kind of thing, because, like, you know, there's 1 billion people there or something like that. So it's, you know, there's a lot of cash to be made. You know, $18 billion, why not? You know, and this is the problem with capitalists. They just can't see past the profit motive. And, like, the Chinese are just like, fuck, we need, like, they have been trying very, very hard over the last decade to, like she said, build their own tech industry. We've been speaking about, like, how they've created their own version of Silicon Valley to try and, you know, get that startup culture going and, like, you know, pumping so much money into, like, the brightest kind of minds that they can in China to just, like, you know, create new technologies and, like, you know, replicate technologies that exist already and just, like, you know, get ahead of the curve and create their own, like, tech sector, basically, like, to rival Silicon Valley. And, you know, they've invited, you know, Facebook over. Oh, lo and behold, okay, you can trade here, but, like, you know, you develop censorship technology for us, and you give us all of your inside, like, secrets, and you tell us, like, how your technologies works and stuff like that. And, like, you know, all that Zuckerberg can think about is just like, hey, $18 billion, like, kind of thing. You know, you could see he's, like, you know, salivating, kind of thing, and, like, you know, compromising, you know, the American position in terms of, like, technological supremacy. Like, I am not arguing for a world where, like, you know, America has technological supremacy, but if I was an American, like, kind of thing, I'd be pretty pissed off about that. Like, where you have, like, the biggest tech people in your country, in Silicon Valley, who have only gotten and risen to become tech lords because of government investment. So basically the taxpayer supporting Silicon Valley and producing a lot of the technologies, or funding a lot of the technologies that they use to reign as tech lords, and him just, like, you know, chuffing off over to China and just being like, hey, can I have in on that Chinese market? And, like, the cost is what? The cost is, like, yeah, here's some technology that we've been developing. We know you really like AI. We know you want to get involved. And, like, you know, you don't even have to deal with, like, IBM and stuff like that. I'll teach you how to, you know, develop server farms as well. I'm like, you know, would you like this piece of technology as well? Like, you know, this is incredible that, like, they're willing for a buck. It would appear like there may be other reasons for this, to kind of sell out their own national interests, I guess. It's incredible. It's a two-way street. Tech companies in California employ thousands of Chinese nationals on visas in some of the top research and engineering positions. And yeah, look, and I'm sure the Chinese are very happy to have their people go over and learn this sort of stuff. And then, like, you know, at one point they'll come back and, like, share all the trade secrets. But, like, this is what I'm talking about, is, like, you know, a large company that is more than willing to provide these trade secrets, let's call them, in exchange for a piece of the market. Like, when the rubber hits the road, you know, capitalists, at the end of the day, they just can't help themselves. There's just nothing like dangling that profit carrot in front of them, and they'll do anything. Like, I get it. There's a lot of exchange that goes on. There's a lot of cross-pollination But like seriously, the Chinese have invested a lot in trying to speed up and get into the tech race. And like, what a chump. Like he's been let in, and he's been let in, like I would say, on purpose. So they can like basically mine his company. And like all they're worried about is just like, how do we kind of, how do we set up things so like, we can add value to the Chinese? Like, the way these guys are speaking and stuff like that, you Americans should be pretty outraged at this. Like, it's, yeah, like I said, I'm not advocating for a world where America has tech supremacy and everyone, has to follow suit kind of thing. But like, for what? For what? For access to a market. It's, this is the problem with capitalism.
At the moment, as you're aware, there's a debate in the AI community around whether open source models or closed models are more appropriate. And one of the considerations around that is national security. But it's not clear at this moment whether open source models or closed models will ultimately prevail. And there's a lot of money on the line. In some ways, you could say it's helpful if you want open source to prevail to have a strong threat from a Chinese model, so that you can say it's really important that America wins this, and we are the American open source option. And I think you can see the way that strategically plays out.
So what you're saying is Facebook's AI model, Llama, I think it's called, that's an open source model, is that right?
Correct.
And I think they just released Llama 4 or something just recently, the last few days. So that's an open source model. Many of the other American competitors, Sam Altman's company, for example, OpenAI, is a closed-sourced model, closed-source code. So Facebook has a fundamentally different take, an open source model. They're briefing the Chinese government, including CCP officials, on this model, on their information. And then we get the revelation of DeepSeek just a few months ago, China's sort of breakthrough on AI. Do you think that Llama had something to do with DeepSeek? Do you think that information sharing helped lead to DeepSeek?
I think it's been widely reported that the DeepSeek model is in part based on Llama.
And so just playing this out, if China's DeepSeek model, another open source model, I think, right, becomes the chief competitor to these other models in the United States, what you're saying is that it stands to reason, and this is something for us to look into certainly, but it stands to reason that in a way Facebook would benefit from that because you've got this threat in DeepSeek. Facebook is the only other really major American.
Hey, screenshot that, Jag. I love America, I love America, I love America, blah, blah, blah. Because like, one day, that might be the difference. Like, pull it out of your pocket when the plainclothes policemen come to throw you in a van. You'd be like, look what I said in the stream. I love America. And they'll be like, oh, sorry. We take it back. We won't be shipping you to El Salvador.
American open source model out there. The others aren't built on that platform. So, Facebook's, their profile is raised, the significance of their model is raised, and maybe they become more important than ever. I mean, does that stand to reason?
Boo. Fuck, you're getting slammed today. Getting punished.
Winner takes all.
I think the algorithm knows we're all
Facebook's,
watching.
their profile is raised, the significance of their model is raised, and maybe they become more important than ever. I mean, does that stand to reason?
I think it's a winner takes all situation, and I think that would set up Meta in a very strong position.
And as usual with Mark Zuckerberg and Meta, they intend to win and take all. Senator Blumenthal, if you're ready, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chairman. In order to operate in China, the Communist Party requires American companies to register with authorities and host servers inside the country. And I think it's pretty well known that Chinese law requires that security services are allowed access to any data hosted within the country. Did any of Facebook's security team or its engineers raise concerns to management about Americans' private information being exposed to Chinese spying?
Yes, Senator, they did.
And how did they do that?
They documented their concern in a number of ways. They noted that this would happen, that the Chinese would get access to the data, and they also noted their concern in other discussions and other documentation, saying, my red line as a security engineer is to not be comfortable with this, but my red line is not Mark Zuckerberg's red line.
Maybe you can explain what you mean by that.
The engineer was saying that they were not comfortable with the way the China project was structured that would allow the Chinese Communist Party to potentially access American citizens' data. But in saying that, they noted that, that's a red line for me as a security engineer. That's not Mark Zuckerberg's red line.
Did you sense he had any red line?
I did not.
If you did, you don't know what it was.
I don't.
If you have more information related to these spying risks, would you be willing to share it with the committee?
I would, Senator.
And Mark Zuckerberg was knowledgeable about the planning, and do you know whether he was knowledgeable about the risks as well?
My understanding is that the risk is the hardest part of the plan, so it's unthinkable that he was not aware of the risk.
Nothing happened here without his approval and knowledge.
This was a project unlike any other project I worked on during my time at Meta, in that it was so centrally led by Mark Zuckerberg, and he was so personally invested in this project. He learnt Mandarin. He traveled to China more than any other country. He had weekly Mandarin sessions with employees. It's hard to overstate how different this project was to any other project I experienced in my many years at the company.
So there would be no credibility to his denying that he knew about the risks, he knew about the concerns raised by his engineers and his China team, and he was intimately involved in not only the planning and the engineering, but also in taking those risks.
Senator, he was traveling to Beijing.
In the documents submitted to the subcommittee, Facebook appears to have been willing to provide the data of users in Hong Kong to the Chinese government.
I'm going to get on. I'm sick of hearing about China. Apologies if you're enjoying that. I want to hear about the Facebook users. That was scary when I saw clips of that. All right. Here we go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am delighted that we are having this hearing today. I thank you for this. And Ms. Wynn-Williams, I want to thank you.
Does anyone know this senator? Anyone? What she's like? Be interesting to have an American perspective on this, because I could just Google it, but it's not the same.
For stepping forward and for speaking. Senator Blumenthal and I last year brought forward the Kids Online Safety Act, and this is a piece of legislation we have worked on for years. It came through the Senate on a 91-3 vote. It failed in the House. As you would imagine, Meta spent millions of dollars lobbying against us and against the legislation, while at the same time they were claiming how much they cared for children and how they wanted to take care of children. And of course, one of the problems, as we have heard these heartbreaking stories from parents of trying to reach out to Meta, no response, of the cyberbullying that was taking place, the pleas from principals and child psychiatrists to do something, and yet they would not do it. And I noted in your book that you talked about Meta targeting children with ads based on their emotional state. And if you want to talk about something that is cruel, I'm a mom and a grandmom, and to kick a kid when they're down, that in essence is what it is kicking them while they're down. That is completely disgusting. And I find it so interesting that Mark Zuckerberg has said he's turned over a new leaf. My response to that was, leaves change color with the seasons of the year. And I am curious as to whether this is a season for him or if it is something that is truly going to be making a difference. And I think he should explain to us. He's been before this committee before, where he truly is. Now, one of the things we found out from other whistleblowers, and you mentioned in your book, that Meta's statement denying it engaged in targeting children was a flat-out lie, and the company had refused to audit these activities. We've heard that from other whistleblowers, that they were doing research and they knew what was happening, but they were so given to the dollar and having children as the product that they...
I don't know where 4IS is, actually. It's a good question. It is a public holiday in Australia, so he's probably off, because he does like to do, the old viewing while he's working. So he's probably enjoying his freedom from the clutches of capital. Not much as usual. And like, you know, he's off today, gallivanting around the world, hopefully.
Themselves, children were addicted, but also Facebook and their leadership team had become addicted to the power that they held and to the money that they were making. But talk to me a little bit about your experience with Meta and how they would choose to cover up or deny that they were harming kids.
Thank you, Senator. One example is that Facebook was targeting 13 to 17-year-olds. It could identify when they were feeling worthless or helpless or like a failure. And they would take that information and share it with advertisers. One of the things about advertising is advertisers understand that when people don't feel good about themselves, it's often a good time to pitch a product. You know, people are more likely to buy something. And so what the company was doing was letting these advertisers know that these 13 to 17-year-olds were feeling depressed and saying, now's a really good time to serve them an advertisement. Or if a 13-year-old girl would delete a selfie, that's a really good time to try and sell her a beauty product. Or if a 13-year-old girl is...
So let me interrupt right there. Sure. If she deleted a selfie, then Facebook was in essence, or Meta, Instagram, they were in essence tracking her activity online.
Absolutely. That was taken as a signal, and then...
Sorry, I missed that comment. I do miss comments. It does happen. Sorry, let me go back. In Twitch, you do live streams just chatting. When the next? You got to do an ad about parenting because we are his children. You are all my children, and we are all learning together, my children, about like what Facebook does to other children right here. So like I haven't ignored it, I swear. But like this is crazy, right? Like, you know, I think we've all met a 13-year-old girl. How dare you miss comments? Yeah, I know. I try, Jerry Poppins. I try. But like we've all met a 13-year-old girl in our lives, okay? And like, you know, if one of them was to delete a selfie, you know, not unusual behavior, okay? And like, there they are. Like, I know we know this stuff because we've watched enough Shoshana Zuboff now to kind of be across all of the dirty tactics that the surveillance capitalists use. But like, it's pretty nefarious, okay? Just being like, hey, look, I get it. I it's capitalism. This is what they do. But like, you know, you got to acknowledge and take a back seat sometimes and just like acknowledge how screwed up like this stuff really is. It's just like that 13-year-old girl is feeling self-conscious right now. She's feeling worthless was the words that she used. She's feeling insecure. She's just deleted a selfie. Let's sell her some beauty products. Let's sell her some new fashionable clothes or something like that. Like, you know, this is pure manipulation. This is the epitome of the behavioral modification stuff that we've been talking about. Like, they are not producing products for sale in the market and like, you know, at arm's length manufacturing people's desires by like hitting them up with ads at like, you know, the local bus stop or on a billboard or on the television kind of thing. Like, they know what you're doing. And when you do something, they notify their advertisers and then get you like at the right point to modify your behavior. And like the modifying of behavior here is just like, okay, you feel like you're worthless, and like in an exchange society, in one where we've been like brainwashed to like, you know, associate consumption with satisfaction, then like you think at that point, okay, well, if I just buy this beauty product and put on this new makeup or this new t-shirt or something, then I'll feel better about myself. That is like modifying our behavior. Like, this is how we start to become more ingrained in a capitalist culture and a consumer culture when we are trained to think, oh, I feel bad, I better purchase something. And like before, you'd have to actually go out and do that. You'd have to think, oh, I feel pretty crappy today. Maybe I'll do some retail therapy. I'll go shopping. But like, that was your thought, like kind of thing. I know like you could argue that's from indoctrination, but like you still physically have to have the thought on yourself, or like of your own volition, through years of propaganda. But like this is like inserting that one in your brain, like right there. This is as close you can get to brain, like, inserting something into your mind without using something like Neuralink, because that's what's coming next. Wait until that's in your head. Okay. And they're going to normalize that real fast too. Like, I had a really good quote the other day from someone I think is a really incredible idea that like, up until like last year, driving a Tesla was like, the sign of like, the liberals and stuff like that, of like being a lib and like, caring about the environment and climate change. And now that Musk is like, basically the co-president with Trump, like you have like MAGA types and like Republicans who hated like, the idea of electric vehicles, buying electric vehicles just to own the libs. And so like, you can easily manipulate people into buying products like for identity politics reasons, as well as consumer habit reasons, as well as just general brainwashing. So like, watch. I'm saying it here. You can all put me on the record. You're all listening to this. Watch how quickly normalized the idea of a Neuralink will be. There's a lot of people that are reserved about this. There's a lot of people that don't like the idea of implanting a microchip in your head. But like you watch the propaganda campaigns and stuff like, and how this becomes like kind of sold as the next level item of convenience to you once this becomes a little bit more viable, this technology. You wait. Imagine the impact they would have if they passed on this information to community groups or schools, alerting them to trends in the community. Instead, they made a choice. They chose money. That's a really good point, actually. And this is like, that really kind of core socialist ideal is like seizing the means of production. And like, there's nothing like this type of means of production, like, social media, because like its tentacles are so far reached and so tightly held across the world's populations that they really could do some like kind of interesting work about like addressing social trends and stuff like that. Like, don't get me wrong, that sort of stuff can get pretty dystopian pretty fast too, because like if you put it in the hands of like government or something like that, then like, they might just use it to like basically control the population, like proper overt totalitarian stuff, not corporate totalitarianism like what we're seeing here. But like, if you made it socialized in terms of like you gave it to the people that kind of run the business, like the workers in Facebook and all this sort of stuff, as opposed to just Mark Zuckerberg and the top executives, then like you might have some better outcomes. You might have people that are able to alert people of threats to communities and issues that are plaguing society and all that sort of stuff. But no, you're right, the way they use it now is to make money. So like slippery slope stuff, man. Is this why I get targeted for member enlargement kits when I delete my photos? This is exactly why, Jerry Poppins, that you're getting that type of advertising fed directly to you. When you start deleting your photos, they know you're feeling insecure about something and they want you to enlarge a little bit so you feel a little bit better about yourself. And so like, let me just say, resist the urge to start going after those little hooks, those little baited hooks that they're putting in front of you. If you ever feel bad after deleting a photo, just hit me up on Discord and I'll talk you through it. Mate. Capitalism serves both liberalism and conservatism when it's convenient. Yeah, two sides of the political system engulfed under the capitalist mode of production. So like, they both support technically the system somehow. Those alpha males paying $80K to impress dudes. What do you mean paying $80K to impress? Was this a reference to? who pays 80K? And for what service? Hey, I wonder if that's what they get hit up with. Hey, so-called alphas getting hit up. Hey, do this course and you can become a real man.
Shared
Okay.
with advertisers.
So they didn't stay given specifically to their app. They traveled in the child's phone.
Cybertruck, right? Okay, yeah, you'll be a real man. Get yourself a Cybertruck. Okay, yeah, and like they're happy to do it now. They're happy to buy Teslas, right? Hey, where's the anti-climate activism now? Hey, it's all a hoax, man. Give me my gas guzzler back. Like, yeah, they're very happy to drive these things around now.
Absolutely, sir.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for that. I think it points up some of the harm that is there. One of the things we've talked about China and their launch of apps, Facebook's apps in China. I wanted to see if you could elaborate on the type data that would be found on Facebook servers located in China and the broader implications of allowing the CCP to have access to that data.
Senator, I mean, we've just spoken in your last question about, just one example of the amount of information that this company has. It is unfathomable. It's very, very hard to wrap your mind around the amount of data that this company has on each person who logs on to its service. It's private messages, but so much data. And all of that would channel through a POP server.
So then it is not just limited, the data Facebook holds or Meta holds is not just limited to the Meta applications.
Not at all, Senator.
So basically Meta has the ability to build what I call a virtual you of an individual, where they go, the transactions they have, the different apps that they rotate from one to another. Is that accurate?
Absolutely, Senator.
Okay, thank you.
I think it's something that deserves reiteration. What she said, it is unfathomable. It is unfathomable. You could not understand it without going in there and seeing it for yourself, how much data they have on you, and therefore what type of profile they have on you. Like I'm telling you, even you savvy people out there who are just like, yeah, I've never been on Facebook, or I haven't been on Facebook in years kind of thing, or like 10 years or something like that. Like, they don't need you to go on Facebook, okay? They just need you to, like, through third-party apps and all that sort of stuff, they have got a profile on you. And like, even I have heard, even if you engage through other people that have Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that, they can get access to you and like figure out data and like trends about you through other people that you engage with. So your friends and your social connections are compromising you, whether you think you fully protected yourself from like the likes of Meta or Google or whoever. If you think you have protected yourself, they will get to you somehow, and they've got a profile on you, and you would be absolutely stunned with the level of information and intricacy they know about you, stuff that you wouldn't even know. Like when you hover your mouse over something for a while, and they're like, oh, MysterE usually hovers his mouse over something for like 10 to 12 minutes before he buys something, usually. And then they'll take that into consideration next time, like I'm hovering my mouse over something which I can purchase online. And they'll be like, oh, he's hitting the 8-minute mark, quickly, hit him with a discount, bang. And it's just like, 10% off, like comes up on the screen. Oh, well, I better buy it now then, like kind of thing. Like the information they have. And like we talked about like the Mozilla Firefox investigation that they did into like the car manufacturers, the big Western car manufacturers at the moment, who are producing cars that are like, they are basically surveillance vehicles on wheels. And so like they're just surveilling people when they get into their cars and like feeding that information back to the car manufacturer, who then sells that on to third parties and data brokers and all that sort of stuff. And like, they've got a lot of biometric data about you, and like, they weigh you every time you get in the car. I don't think most people would even care if they did know. They love that shit. I don't know. I would like to beg to differ with that one. Okay. Like, I would really like to think that if people knew like some of the more scary elements of this, they would have a problem with it to a certain degree. Like, a lot of people make the argument, you're right, that it's convenient. Like, you know, when I'm scrolling through Amazon or something like that, like it suggests something that I didn't even know I wanted, like, kind of thing. And like that sort of stuff is convenient. But like, you know, the other stuff though, like, you know, herding you into a corner and forcing you to buy something, and like modifying your behavior, changing what you're doing, like preying on like, you know, young teenagers and stuff like that. Like, I think people would be disturbed by that to a certain degree. I would hope that they would be. Jag, all right? I still have hope for the human race. I have hope. So like, you know, glitching is red. Damn. It seems to be fine on my end. If you look at most of what we do online, it doesn't need this level of personalization. I don't think people would miss it. Yeah, like this is the thing. Like a lot of the stuff that they really are, you know, scraping off you is for their own kind of, you know, capitalistic endeavors. Social media makes people feel important. I am more misanthropic. Yeah, apparently. Well, let's bring a little bit of hope and a ray of sunshine back into the room there. Because yeah, I really do hope that people. Misanthropic is like kind of a feeling of not being hopeful, actually. It's like a kind of melancholy and like, yeah, not having the faith in the system at the end of the day. They have been tracking drugs in the pipes, for example. Squeeb 89, hello sir. Coming in from left field there. And what drugs are we talking about? Yeah. Which pipelines? Because like that, I'm not sure has actually anything to do with social media. If you're referring to what I think you're, not just technical channels, but all ways you interact in society. Oh yeah, my stream is going off. I can see that. It's glitching. Oh, sewage, yes. Yes. And you know where like all the cocaine is in Sydney, Squeeb? It's in the eastern suburbs, so where all the rich people live, and all the lawyers, all the corporate types all hang out. When they test the sewers, all the cocaine, or most of the cocaine they find, is all in the rich areas. Lo and behold, eh? Wastewater. They've been bugging the pipes. They've been bugging the pipes, man.
I've got one other question I want to come to you on, and we have heard not only from you, but from others, that Mark Zuckerberg would veto recommendations from his team when it came to improving practices that would protect children or would protect data. And he would do this because he would say it was too costly. And I just find that astounding. In the physical world, we have laws that protect an individual's privacy. We have laws that protect children and protect them from being exposed to certain harms like alcohol, tobacco, sales, meeting predators, pedophiles.
I think it's an interesting point. Like, you know, we do actually have laws like, you know, protecting children. Like, you know, there are age limits on things. You have to be 18 plus. Maybe for some types of movies, I guess you have to be 15 plus. But like, you can't drink or you can't buy alcohol anyway. You can't buy tobacco and certain substances until you're a certain age. So like, you know, if these things are potentially detrimental to people's health, so like, you know, their mental health, I guess, then like, you know, we have systems and regulations in place. Why can't there be regulations put on social media platforms that like put restrictions on users that are, you know, underage or something like that? It's an interesting point. I would say. As you say, cars now too, browsers, etc. Yeah, everything is up for grabs in the surveillance capitalist world. Squib, like, I've been in meetings where I've heard, like, developers talking about smart cities and like how you'll be able to know kind of everything that goes on in a city because like it can be completely surveilled from top to tail, and you'll know where the crowds are and where the people are at, and that'll be good for the business sector and all of the like the business parts of your city, and like you can match your opening hours and your sales and your trading time to capture all the right people and stuff like that. And I'm sitting in those meetings just saying, you guys need to give a shit about local business operators. Creating smart cities is about, capturing data on people and locating them. Look at the way that Palantir works and like Clearview AI and stuff like that. They want some facial recognition technology on the ground so they can really track people and know what's happening. Social services, how do they know to come knock at my door? Someone has to squeal, or governments has to monitor what I post on social media. Beware the cashless economy, eh? Yeah, especially when stuff goes down too. What happens when the servers go down? Well, like you literally can't even survive. You can't buy stuff until everything's back online again.
So I wanted to know if you had witnessed that he or the other C-suite were actually vetoing recommendations that would have provided consumer protection and protection of children in the virtual space.
Consumer protection? What's that?
What I love about pay.com.au is that I can pay everything in one spot, and it allows me to avoid the messy,
I think they were listening
disorganized.
to us talking
Yes,
about
Senator,
cash just then.
Protection and protection of children in the virtual space.
Yes, Senator, and as a mother of 3 children, that's one of the more difficult aspects to reconcile with this company, that it is not a company that looks after users, particularly those 13 to 17, which they regard as vulnerable yet very valuable.
And then
What a name, right, for 13 to 17-year-olds. Vulnerable yet valuable, and that's a guarantee. Like, imagine like setting out your audience or your clientele like that, and just being like, see those ones over there? They're incredibly vulnerable people, and so you're going to make a lot of money off them. So let me tell you how to exploit them best. Bro of 17 hairstyles. Excuse me. Have you been speaking to Jack? It wasn't 17 hairstyles. Do not mute my address. My ads. Oh, you want the ads? Yeah, people do like the Australian ads. I can't stand them anymore. I just can't do it. Actually, in saying that, and while there's so many people like kind of online still, I'm just going to do some quick, what are they called? Self-promotion, I guess. If you are not on the Discord, please come onto the Discord so you can continue the conversation over there. Here's the invite. Do yourself a favor. And if you want to support me on Patreon, which I would really like if you did that, not gonna lie. Here is the Patreon link too. Because then we can get rid of the ads on YouTube. I know some people like watching the Australian ads, but like they're not mine. They're not my favorite. I'm not gonna lie. That's what I love about these high school girls, man. I get older and they stay the same age. Yeah, I've heard that reference like through Family Guy, but I never understood what it was. So Dazed and Confused, is that a movie or something? And like Brian the dog does that quote. Yeah, it's bad. Gambling and credit cards, their customers are vulnerable. Yeah, like, look, don't get me wrong. Gamblers are a vulnerable group. Very vulnerable and easily manipulated, unfortunately. But like, at least they're adults. Like kids, like come on, man. Would somebody actually think of the children? Actually did some work in not for profit business. Their biggest donor base is typically people in need and who struggle to get by week. Ha, it's a great movie. Okay. Might have to check it out then. Who the fuck said that, Jack? You. Yeah, it's from a movie. So many industries take what they can, but some just are more socially aware of what impacts they cause versus good they deliver. Yeah, that's capitalism. They take what they can, and then they'll shoot first, ask later. Am I doing harm? Can I afford to do less harm? Yes. All right. Maybe I'll just ease off a little bit. Can I not afford to do harm? Which is exactly what this woman is talking about. Like they could protect children, and Zuckerberg was like, "No, it's going to cost too much. Sorry, not having it. I've got an $18 billion empire to create with China over here. Come on."
How long were you employed at Facebook, and when was your last day?
I was employed from...
What accent is that? When was your last day? When? Like, is that a southern accent? Where's she coming from, this senator? When were you employed with Facebook, and when was your last day?
2011, and it's slightly complicated, but I finished in the end of 2017.
2017. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Dermott.
Thanks for being here. That reference that I opened up with, that you made in your book to a strategy, a message strategy for Meta, and someone suggested tobacco as kind of the guideline that you might want to follow, some dangerous product.
Mississippi. She's country. Yeah. Okay. Mississippi. Cool Whip. Yes. That's the reference I know as well. When you say Cool Whip. Cool Whip.
That was lessened in intensity to the public by misrepresentations. As I mentioned at the outset, I was part of the effort to bring them down. Didn't realize I'd reached a tipping point with smoking on airplanes, but it turned out to be one, and things changed. You make a reference as well in the book that a lot of the executives at Facebook protected their own children from what might have been an exploitation. What you've described here, the algorithm that analyzes your activity on the board and says, well, just deleted a selfie, good time for an ad. Somebody had put that together. So these executives at Facebook protected their own kids from that kind of exploitation, correct?
Senator, that was one of the things that shocked me when I moved to Silicon Valley, is that it's a place full of, wooden Montessori toys, and, executives would always speak about how they have screen bans in the house, or, I would say, oh, has your teen used the new product we're about to launch? And they're like, my teenager's not allowed on Facebook. I don't have my teenager on Instagram. Like, these executives, they know the harm that this product does. They don't allow their own teenagers to use the products that Meta develops. I mean, the hypocrisy is at every level.
Looking for a burst of flavour guaranteed to freshen your family?
Boo ads. We're getting hammered today. Must be Forbes. Forbes breaking news.
I wanted to just tell you
their own teenagers to use the products that Meta develops. I mean, the hypocrisy is at every level.
So I wanted to just tell you a follow-up to that story. Eventually, the children of tobacco executives became my greatest fans and supporters. And they would basically shame their parents by saying, that, the kids at school are saying this, or I just heard something, or I read something. Dad, tell me that you aren't part of that tobacco conspiracy to keep the truth from the American people. They became a force, a moral force in the conversation. It'd just be speculation, but I hope that that is the case here as well.
I hope you're right, Senator.
I read these things, and so I want to ask you a question that is more generic, but I'm just curious as to the decision process at the highest levels. When there is a decision being made about what you're going to turn over.
TikTok, same deal, but log into the app in China, it's all motivational learning content. That's interesting. What I mean is same concept of a parent at Facebook telling their kids not to use it. Interesting.
What Facebook, Meta, is going to turn over to the Chinese, all their demands that you said the company denied to so many other countries, but for China, they made an exception. When the decision is being made about exposing American privacy material and data so that the Chinese would have access to it, Americans not knowing that. The security questions that you raised, the AI information is given to the Chinese that makes them, quote, more competitive, but also means that they have sources of information that could compromise the security of the United States. I mean, when you consider each one of these, they kind of grow in gravity and magnitude. Are these decisions being made strictly by Zuckerberg himself or by boards or by open discussion? How much sensitivity was there to the fact that the decisions were historic in nature and maybe even criminal?
It's a really interesting question. I mean, you asked me in part about China. You know, to give you just one example, at the governance level, which is what you're asking me, the lead independent director on Meta's board was also on the payroll for the China project.
So that they had dual loyalty?
I think the question around accountability and governance of this company and of tech companies more generally, there needs to be a lot more accountability. I don't think the current governance structures are anywhere close to being sufficient.
Tell me that there were people at that company that you worked with that didn't sell out.
Absolutely, absolutely. There are, you know, there were amazing people, and there are people who were horrified and had very strong moral conscience. And there are many of these people who've been in touch who, since these revelations have come out, have said, you know, I was in those meetings, I remember this. You know, there were people who spoke up, there were people, I regret to say that many of the people who spoke up are no longer at the company, but there are good people there, and there are people who have moral beliefs, and there certainly were, but that wasn't happening at the top of the company, that wasn't happening at the executive level, and what was striking was the absence of those types of discussions at the top of the company compared to what was happening with your average people who are working at the company.
And you say Mr. Zuckerberg himself prides himself on being a loyal American?
I think Mr. Zuckerberg would say he does.
Yes.
But I don't want to speak for him.
No, of course not. But I think the evidence that you've given us points in the other direction. Lying to Congress may be in the realm of a mortal sin, depending on your faith conviction, but certainly selling out the security.
Hey, I hope the Americans listening to this aren't intending on lying, because, like, you know, about America or about America's interests, because it's a mortal sin. Eh? That sort of shit gets you deported. Eh? Watch out. Watch out. See, China exceptions. China as a government is a survivee state, but they also care about how they are perceived. I object to conjecture. 10 years ago, at UTS, we were looking at the potential for social media to be used as an educational tool. That hypothesis has not aged well. The algorithm will always prioritize rage over learning. That's interesting, actually, because they do profit a lot in rage. The old social media companies and their algorithms, they do push a lot of rage. But, like, you know, humans are like naturally predisposed to a bit of drama. And so, like, you know, they don't mind, like, getting kind of into, like, whatever, rage baits them and stuff like that. So, like, you know, I think, you know, social media is just, like, honing in on that disposition and, like, making a good buck from it. Let's be honest. Still can be educational, just depends on your point. Bias for the algorithmic. Yeah, it can be, but it's not going to be in the hands of surveillance capitalists. That's the real point here. That's why you seize their means of production. They're never going to be more educational. Like, they could be both, but, like, it's never going to be more. If you weighted them, it will never be more educational than it is profitable. Unless those two things align for some reason, everyone decides that education is really important, then it will be educational and profitable. But, like, it will always be profitable first. And you have no right to speak for him here. Yeah, I know, right? It was a bit like that. And she can't really speak for him either. YouTube seems to be doing a little bit better than the others. Maybe. I don't know. We've been censored a number of times here. Duolingo, yeah, but like it's only educational because it's profitable. That's the thing. And like I'm telling you now, the education doesn't outdo the profit. Like if they start to lose money, then they will make changes to whatever educational services they're providing. Just my opinion.
Security and privacy of the United States is about as low as they go when it comes to big tech. Have you been in any conversations involving Section 230?
No, Senator.
All right. Well, that's certainly a law that we're taking a close look at here, which shields companies like this from personal civil liability. Many of us believe the committee has voted accordingly that if they could be held accountable for their decisions in a court of law and find damages, money to money, that this would have more impact than some of the best speeches we could put together as members of Congress. So we're going to work on that. Mr. Chairman, I thank you for this hearing, but I particularly thank you because you've referred to in your testimony what you call in the book 3 pistols, which I think is your reference to your 3 children. You've done a great thing for them and for kids all across the world. Thank you for testifying today.
All right. Interesting. Very interesting. And I think I'm going to leave it there. And, you know, this has been absolutely eye-opening. Okay. The tech bros, obviously, you know, they have interests and they have global interests and they really don't care about like kind of national security. Like this is so different to Terman, like that dude that helped found Silicon Valley that we were learning about just yesterday. Like Terman like was so like ingrained in Stanford University because he was trying to develop technology, electronic warfare technology to help America beat the Soviets in the Cold War, and like went out and started up the startup culture of Silicon Valley by telling these kids that were coming through the university system in Stanford and just been like, go start up a business and you produce the stuff that the military needs so we can protect national interests. Like this is not Terman philosophy. Like this is the complete opposite of that. You have Mark Zuckerberg, tech bro, Silicon Valley kind of like aristocracy who's like going over to China and selling out national interests as well as American businesses. Like, you know, part of his pitch was like to get into the Chinese market was like, hey, we'll give you tech that helps undermine American businesses. Like, and like, you know, completely okay with that. Like completely okay with like, you know, American user data being compromised so they could, you know, offer a better product to the Chinese, like, and set up these POP servers on Chinese soil. Like this is like complete surveillance capitalist stuff now. Like there was an alignment of interest before between the private sector and the public sector in Silicon Valley. Like, you know, they literally was like, it was more of a public-private partnership. Now, like, you know, it's like the private arm of Silicon Valley has completely forgotten its roots. And they're just like, fuck the, you know, the deep state, the government who helped like basically fund all the technologies that has allowed us to rise to position, like pole position in the bourgeoisie and be the most effectual components of the global bourgeoisie, really, and basically have allowed them access to the White House and a presidency. And like they completely forgotten their roots, like it would seem, like completely forgotten their roots, and like they're more than happy to kind of benefit, like just to make, like to enter into a market and provide technology with like an adversary, as they keep saying. Like, well, you expect nothing less, I'm assuming, from American senators. They view China as an adversary and they want to protect their national interests and stuff like that. But you know, he had absolutely no qualms with doing any of this, old Zuckies. He was learning Mandarin and getting on the private jet on a weekly basis to go over and speak to the Chinese and like basically provide them with whatever value they wanted, which includes censorship infrastructure, which might I add is a little bit scary because like you have to ask yourself, like if he's developing censor architecture for the Chinese, like what's stopping Meta using that same technology at home? Nothing. That's probably, you know, kill 2 birds with 1 stone kind of thing. Let's develop censorship technology for the Chinese and we'll take that home and like, you know, use it Or we'll take it outside of China and use it on the global market. Let's be honest. YouTube 5 to 10 years ago was focused on value of time spent. Now it's on duration. I would argue it was longer than 10 to 5 years ago. Most cartoons, animated content disappeared, and average video length jumped to 20 minutes. Yeah, it's interesting, actually. Yeah, most content is reaction content or video games. Source MysterE today. Hey, this is a live stream. It's not reaction content, technically. Is it day in there? Like over here, it's daytime? Yes, it is. Yeah, it's the middle of the day. And I must get going. So thank you everyone for joining today. I thought this was really interesting. I'm not sure about you guys. Maybe you already know all of this sort of stuff, but like, I don't know the depth of all of this stuff. Like, I have my suspicions, but this stuff is absolutely mental. Like, like the security risks, the blatant disregard for national interest, the blatant disregard for like human beings that are like using this stuff is like next level. But like, what do you expect from surveillance capitalists? Like, they're a different type of capitalist at the end of the day. So thank you everyone. Honey32, it's great to have you back. NP Life Apologists, Jag, thanks for interacting as always. Ollie Atlas, of course. Stephen said, good to have you here on a Friday. Seems to be your fang coming in on a Friday. Who else have I missed? Going through the chat. Jeriga, thanks for your comment. Jerry Poppins, sneaking in there. Squeeb89, you all know who you are. Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming through. And yeah, appreciate the interaction. And like, we're getting punished by the algorithm at the moment. So if you like, keep an eye out for the content, share it as much as you can, watch it, interact with it, and help spread the word. Appreciate all that you do. And we will be back next week with more live streams. And yes, see you later. Makes the girls go like, does. Squeebalicious. That's right. Don't forget it. So yeah, thank you everyone, and enjoy a week, like a long weekend if you've got it. If your nation's working class has fought to make Easter celebrations public holidays, I hope you enjoy your public holidays, and never forget the struggles of the working class. Have a great weekend, everybody, and please remember, until next time, I am, you are, we are a mystery.